Welcome back into Talking Fitchburg. Joining me today from Fitch-Rona EMS, it's your Deputy Chief, Jeff Dostalek. Jeff, welcome back to the show. How are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. Good morning, afternoon.
Whatever time this is. Yes. Hello, Jeff. Today we're going to take on a very serious topic and something we've actually talked about on this show in different capacities, not only with you, but with fire, police, and many others. But peer support. Definitely a big topic in public safety world for sure. And peer support, we'll break it all down for you. I don't want to steal your thunder by any means, but why is or what is peer support first off, Jeff, and how are we using it here in Fitch-Rona?
Yeah, so peer support, the old adage, that we used to have in the early days of, police, fire, and EMS is, just suck it up, just handle it. It is what it is. And I think that those days are gone. We see a lot of bad things. Sometimes we see a lot of bad things pretty quickly. And, for peer support, it allows us to reach out to each other, make sure that, that we're okay, that we have resources available to our staff in the event that somebody's not okay. And we used to, I'm old school. I've been doing it a long time, and you hold everything in, and then eventually that starts to eat at you. And we see job performance issues. We see issues at home with families. We see issues with drinking, alcohol, drugs, and in some cases we see suicide. And so our attempt with peer support is to make sure that we can intervene quickly, recognize that folks are having issues with either a call or accumulation of a whole lot of calls that just kind of come to a head at a certain point. And that's why we were really excited to join the fire department, the police department in Fitchburg, and be part of the peer support team.
Yeah, it's hard to explain in emergency or I like to say public safety to kind of cover all spectrums. But the stress level that comes with the job is actually part of the lessons that you actually learn. I can speak from doing EMT school that's a big section in there to begin with. So what are you guys taught, the men and women of public safety, on ways of dealing with stress?
So as part of the peer support team, our focus is to recognize that there was an incident that potentially could be harmful to a provider, and make sure that we're reaching out quickly to them, and really just kind of listen. It's a lot of times, and because I like to talk, that sometimes it's hard to be quiet and open up your ears and your heart and try to understand where somebody's coming from and not make a prejudgment, not to say things like, "Oh, I've been there, I've done that. It'll be okay. You'll be okay." Those things aren't acceptable. We have to understand that how I deal with something might be different than how my partner might be dealing with something, or another fire department's member might be dealing with something. So to understand where they're coming from, to listen to what their feelings are, to offer some ways as a peer support member, to offer some ways that they can cope with those, with some of the feelings that they have, and to remind them that what they do is important, that without them, we wouldn't have the emergency services, we wouldn't have police, fire, EMS, and then to make sure that they understand that there's support out there, either through the peer support team, or professionally, that they need to reach out and understand that that's how we get through some of this stuff.
For people who don't know, Jeff, a lot of times public safety will do debriefings after major events. Might not even be a fatality necessarily, or somebody who passed away. It could be just an intense call of whatever nature. Why does public safety do that? Do the debriefing, and how does that fit into the peer support?
There's debriefing, there's diffusing. Both of those things are important to make sure that members, immediately just don't go home and start to think about all the things that went on. They don't have an opportunity to talk to their peers, to people out there that do understand. And to do those things rather quickly after the incident allows us to get some of those feelings out, do it in a way that is non-judgmental, with the peer support team that we have with the fire department, the police department in Pittsburgh, that they don't take some of that stuff home right away, have a chance to sleep on it, and then don't have an opportunity to go out and express, really how they feel. We're really fortunate that, the people that do emergency services have family members that understand what they go through every day. And well, I know that I can go home and have a conversation with my wife about what happened during the day, and she understands. There's a lot of family members that don't understand how stressful the job really can be, and when you have those critical incidents, even if it's not a fatality, there has to be a mechanism that we can all sit down and talk about what happened. There's times where we talk about what went really well. There's times that we talk about things that didn't go so well, and how we can, it's not really a judgment on, well, let's talk about the call and could we change policy and procedure. That's really not what that is about. It's really about, how do you feel things went on your end? How do you feel things could have been better for you? What did you see? And I think the more people talk about those kinds of things, they understand we're all in this together. And maybe what you're feeling is the same thing that the person next to you is feeling, and you're not alone in that. And I think that's what's important about doing diffusings, doing debriefings. Maybe it's a one-on-one peer support at some point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think a lot of times good taking that component and then, somebody still feeling pretty shaken up by it. I assume that you could take them up with that peer support person to help them talk it out more and take the steps that they need to work through it. And it's not something that you have to get over necessarily. It's not something that you just have to come to terms with for what it's worth and whatnot. As far as the peer support folks go, what is some of the training that you're going through and creating these peer support helpers? Because it's a group effort, so there's a lot of people involved.
Right. The CIVNIC put on a couple of trainings for us that went to that are part of the peer support team. There's kind of different levels, and that's the training that I went through. Christy and Sarah as well with Fitch-Rona EMS went through those trainings through CIVNIC. And it really taught us the steps in what a diffusing would be, the steps in what a debriefing is, and then talked a lot about being compassionate, having really good listening skills as opposed to, really good talking skills. And that training, I think, was valuable for me to understand really what people are going through. I mean, I used to be the old adage, I don't need to talk about it, I'm fine. And I learned, I've learned the hard way that, through some of the depression that I've gone through with EMS, that's really not the way to handle it. And that training allows us to understand what others are going through and how we can talk to them and try to elicit a conversation about an incident versus giving them our opinion on what that incident should have went like or how they should be feeling. Well, you don't need to feel that way. Why do you feel that way? I mean, those are just really closed-end questions that don't allow people to express themselves.
Yeah. Final question, Jeff, and it's something we were talking about before. But if you see a story, you hear a story of somebody that's passed away because of depression, maybe they took their life, whatever the case may be. You hear it on the news, you hear it on. From your perspective and with the peer support, how should we gauge that as a community? How do we gauge that the public safety is hurting in so many different ways with the above and beyond stress of a pandemic, let alone everything else out there? How, from your standpoint, how would you explain that to the community?
I guess I would want the community just to understand that, you know, I would venture to guess 95% of us are in this job, you know, obviously not for the money and not for the fame and not for the fortune, all that kind of stuff. We're in it because we really want to help people. And that's why we, you know, police, fire, and EMS do this. And just to understand that our job is stressful and we see a lot of things that um, uh, we're trained to see and we're trained to deal with, but it still affects us where maybe the general public is not trained to see, you know, a really bad car accident with a fatality, or, you know, a mass shooting with, you know, people hurt and screaming. Um, and just to understand, put themselves in our shoes when that happens, and just be sort of careful about some of the questions that you might ask your friends or you might ask a provider. I mean, we get it all the time, and there's probably every provider that will listen to this is, you know, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? Well, I mean, I could tell you 50,000 worst things that I've ever seen, and it's not one thing that sits on your heart. It's a cumulative thing that, you know, the job brings to it. And, you know, it saddens me when I learn of, you know, a provider that has committed suicide. And then you know, you think about all the times that you may have interacted with them, um, and you just didn't listen really good with your heart. So just understand that there's a lot of stuff that we go through, and that you know, we also, you know, there's also all the other pressures that come with being a good provider. There's pressures at home, there's pressures with finances personally, there's, you know, if you sit in a command staff or a management position, there's pressures to, you know, all the stuff that comes along with that. And then just to open your heart and have a little bit of understanding when it comes to that. And eventually we will share. We will sit down, and, you know, there'll be a point where I can tell you the worst call that I ever had. But that takes some time, even right now.
Yeah. No, Jeff, I think it's great perspective, and you know, glad to talk about it. And I said we've got a series on this with the peer support group, so it's been nice to share these stories and talk about all of it together. And we look forward to talking more about it with you and the rest of the peer support group here in the city of Fitchburg. All of you have done great work and have a lot of great work to come too. So
Yes.
we appreciate your time and talking with us on this and your perspective.
Thank you.
And Jeff, will look forward to having you back on the show real soon.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
You bet. Jeff Dostalek, Fitch-Rona EMS, talking about peer support. And yeah, we'll keep following up on this here on Fact TV. Take a quick break. More to come. You're watching Talking Fitchburg.